Have you ever noticed that some men don't need to raise their voices, crack jokes, flaunt their status, or even try to get attention? And yet, every woman in the room knows he's there. It's almost irritating. He's not the most handsome, nor the most talkative, nor the most performative, but he carries a weighty silence, a presence that displaces the atmosphere. Meanwhile, men who try too hard end up being noticed less. And it might hurt to admit, but you've been on both sides. The man who tries hard and isn't seen, and the man who, when silent, makes the whole world try to decipher him. The most intriguing thing, this invisible power has nothing to do with beauty, money, or luck. It has to do with strategy, and few understand that strategy. Most men still believe that winning a woman's heart is about speaking well, being kind, showing interest, participating, explaining, and opening their hearts. It sounds nice, but in practice, it destroys any remaining mystery and kills attraction before it even begins. Women don't respect hard-working men. They respect men who have substance. They don't fall in love with what you say, but with what you maintain in silence. And here's the controversy. The game that really works is almost the opposite of what you've been taught. You've missed many chances, not for lack of value, but for overexposure. And that's exactly what Machiavelli would explain if he were alive today, because there's an invisible, silent, psychological game that women perceive even before they recognize the man's name. A game not based on manipulation, but on a deep understanding of human dynamics. A game that Machiavelli mastered in the political arena and which, applied to desire, creates results that most men will never achieve. Today, you will understand the structure of this game. You will see why women instantly respect certain men and ignore others, even if they seem perfect. And when you finish this video, you will not only understand the game, you will start playing it. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He realizes sooner or later that the more he tries to explain himself, the further he moves away from the role of the desired man and into the role of the candidate. And a candidate never has power. In the silent game between men and women, there's a detail few see. When he tries too hard to be understood, he places himself below her, as if asking permission to exist. It's almost instinctive. She senses he's trying too hard, talking too much, trying to show too much, and ironically, the more he tries to make himself understood, the more power he loses without even realizing it. Not because she's cruel, but because the nature of attraction works that way. His discomfort in occupying space already reveals everything. And the truth is, when a man puts himself in the position of needing to explain every gesture, he gives away his own mystery, which is precisely what sustains desire. That's where the fundamental mistake that so often brings him down, even unintentionally, is born. And it's precisely at this point that the politics of desire begin to become evident, even before he realizes the game he's playing. The second move happens when he tries to get to know her too quickly, thinking that this will bring him closer, when in reality it only demeans him. He asks questions as if he were conducting an interview, not a connection. What do you do? Where are you from? What kind of guys do you like? And without realizing it, each question puts her on a pedestal and him in the audience. Because in trying to dig for answers, he communicates, without explicitly saying it, that she is the prize and he is the evaluator, desperate for approval. The woman doesn't think about this rationally, but she feels it. She feels that he has already positioned himself as someone seeking validation, and not as someone who naturally carries presence, calmness, and value. That's why those perfect conversations, full of polite questions, die the next day. It's not a lack of manners, it's a lack of silent masculine energy, the kind that fits into the space without needing to fill it with words. And it is precisely here that the difference between connection and negotiation arises, and he hasn't even realized he's already negotiating. What truly creates attraction isn't comfort, predictability, or the feeling that everything is clear from the start. Attraction is born from mystery, from the unexpected, from the curiosity she feels when she realizes she can't fully understand that man. It's precisely this inability to categorize him that makes desire grow in the space between one message and another, between one silence and another. When everything is obvious, nothing is magnetic. When everything is explained, nothing is fascinating. It's at this point that the politics of desire begins to align with an ancestral thought, used by strategists, leaders, and men who deeply understood human behavior. She can't explain why, but she senses it when a man carries that posture. And it's precisely on this threshold, between mystery and presence, that the ideas of an old strategist begin to make sense, even if he never spoke directly about romance. And it's at this point that the next topic begins to reveal what almost no one has explained to you about silent power. He begins to understand that silence is not the absence of a voice, but an amplified presence. It's curious how so many men interpret silence as weakness, when in fact it is one of the oldest weapons of politics, guided by reality, not by ideals. Silence creates space, and whoever masters the space masters the frame. When he remains calm, observing without haste, he exercises exactly what Machiavelli would call reading the true nature of humanity, letting the other reveal themselves before acting. Those who cannot bear the silence give themselves away first, talk too much, explain too much, try too hard to please. But the man who maintains his center transmits something rare, inner control. And this control functions almost like virtu and fortuna meeting, a mixture of preparation and opportunity. By speaking less, each word gains weight, and she begins to wonder who he is. That's where the mystery is born, not as a manipulative artifice, but as a natural result of someone who lives according to the principle. The end justifies the means when the means is self-control. He also understands that silence isn't coldness, it's strategy. It's the famous calculated use of force, only applied to communication. Instead of spouting stories, opinions, and details about his life, he observes the environment and lets reality speak first. Any experienced mentor would say that this is as valuable as leading your own loyal armies. Those who master the frame don't chase attention, they simply occupy it. And it's impressive how, when he speaks little, people automatically project onto him more depth than perhaps exists at that moment. And that's okay, because that's how human interaction works. In a meeting, for example, when she asks something and he answers simply, without rushing to fill every silence, she begins to try to truly understand him. She pays attention to his tone, his gaze, his pauses. And in those pauses, he discovers what Machiavelli already knew: better to be feared than loved, but always avoid being hated. Silence plus calm, she's presence. When he learns to master this communication style, something changes in the dynamic. She begins to approach him. Not because he's playing hard to get, but because the mystery born from calmness is far more powerful than any rehearsed phrase. This is where the principle of constant adaptability works perfectly. Each situation calls for a different level of silence, observation, and action. He speaks when necessary, not when he fears losing ground. He remains silent when appropriate without seeming distant. And the more he does this, the more he realizes that silence doesn't extinguish attraction, it ignites it. The man who speaks little but observes much transmits exactly what human nature seeks in social environments: firmness, self-control, and presence. And when she senses this, she begins to try to understand him, decipher him, get closer. Because mystery is fertile ground for desire. And precisely there, in the space between what he says and what he doesn't say, the first layer of the politics of desire is born. The one he will only fully understand when he looks at the next piece of the puzzle. He discovers, almost as if stumbling upon an uncomfortable truth, that over-explaining is always a silent confession of insecurity. When he rushes to justify every gesture, opinion, or silence, he communicates exactly the opposite of what he intends. He conveys the feeling that he is afraid of being misunderstood. And fear, in the field of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, transforms any man into a predictable figure. Machiavelli already warned that decisions based on real human nature require firmness, not anxiety. When someone tries to be understood all the time, they announce that they can be controlled. After all, if a man panics at the possibility of not being approved, he becomes manipulable by any crumb of validation. The end justifies the means, yes, but only when the means are one's own inner solidity. Speaking little and not explaining everything is not arrogance. It is stability, and stability in the psychology of desire is worth more than any rehearsed speech. Over time, he begins to realize that the compulsive need to justify himself puts the woman in the role of judge and him in the role of defendant. It's as if, without realizing it, he's signing an internal document saying, "Please evaluate me." And nobody wants someone who puts themselves down like that. Strong men carry an appearance of virtue, not because they pretend, but because they don't give in to the impulse to explain every step. They understand that constant adaptability doesn't mean molding themselves to her liking. It means adjusting to circumstances without losing their own balance. When he stands by his choices without lecturing about them, he activates a powerful psychological effect. She respects what she doesn't fully understand. This echoes the old maxim that it's better to be feared than loved, as long as one knows how to avoid being hated. And paradoxically, the firm and calm man is perceived as someone who doesn't need to justify himself to exist. And this creates attraction, not distance. Being able to be misunderstood without panicking is one of the deepest marks of male self-control. He understands that some people simply won't see everything he sees, and that's okay. Those who constantly try to be interpreted correctly end up revealing too much, handing over their own manual on how to be manipulated. The man who maintains silence, responds simply, and stays focused on his own direction, resembles a general leading his own loyal armies. He doesn't ask for opinions on every move, he simply moves forward. This subtle, almost invisible use of posture and firmness is the true calculated use of force applied to modern relationships. He's not harsh, he's clear. He's not cold, he's centered. And inevitably, the woman feels this. She feels the weight of someone who doesn't bend out of insecurity or explain himself out of fear. And precisely for this reason, she continues trying to understand him. And it is in this attempt that the emotional game begins to deepen in the next move. He begins to notice that most men waste energy trying to be seen when true power lies in being felt. Attention is cheap. Emotional impact is expensive. Men who beg for attention remain trapped in the childish cycle of "please notice me," while men who understand politics, guided by reality, not ideals, know that emotion triumphs over logic in any field, including desire. Machiavelli, if he were speaking of modern relationships, would say that decisions based on real human nature require not excessive talk, but the ability to create atmosphere. And atmosphere cannot be forced, it is cultivated. When he stops trying to be interesting and becomes unpredictable in just the right measure, he creates what psychologists call productive tension, a mixture of comfort and mystery that for her is almost addictive. The end justifies the means when the means is stable emotional presence, not desperation for attention. And it is precisely in this difference that the game changes. He learns that it's not his job to erase her every emotional discomfort, nor to rush to fix what she feels. That's a modern trap. Men who try to solve everything quickly lose their magnetism because they become too predictable. Real power lies in maintaining one's own calm while she wavers, a dance reminiscent of the calculated use of force, firmness without aggression. When he remains centered, he conveys that he carries his own loyal armies within himself, not armies borrowed for external validation. This activates a silent respect in her, that feeling that he won't crumble at the first emotional test. And tests will always come, not out of malice, but because human nature seeks stability. Being able to be present without reacting with panic is one of the principles of constant adaptability. And if she feels this strength, she naturally tunes into his emotional rhythm, not the other way around. The game becomes even more interesting when he realizes that controlling her attention is useless, but controlling the emotional climate of the interaction is powerful, not in a manipulative sense, but strategically. He doesn't react to impulsive withdrawals, doesn't rush to calm dramas, and doesn't try to score points with long speeches. Instead, he leads by example, slow breathing, relaxed posture, simple speech. A true appearance of virtue, not perfect, but solid. She, sensing this stability, begins to adjust her own emotional rhythm. This is how desire grows, not in chaos, but in contrast. He creates healthy unpredictability, never confusion. He remains calm, never apathetic, and that's where Machiavelli's principles make sense. Better to be feared than loved only when there is a risk of losing one's balance. But in the dynamics of desire, true power lies in being consistently unwavering. This opens space for the next layer, where too much intention becomes weakness and silence becomes your greatest protection. He realizes, almost like a snap, that predictability is the greatest enemy of desire. When everything is too clear, the mystery dies, and with it, the attraction. Machiavelli said that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands precision in what is shown and wisdom in what is hidden. And in the dynamic between men and women, this translates into something simple, revealing fragments, never the whole map. Showing too much interest too soon gives away power. Showing deep intentions without the emotional bond formed is like opening the castle gates before building walls. The end justifies the means, but only when the means protect its essence, not expose it. By keeping part of himself in reserve, he allows her to explore, imagine, project, and these projections are fuel for desire. When he becomes completely legible, she loses the psychological challenge. When he maintains depth without haste, she dives in willingly. Over time, he learns the difference between healthy transparency and naive vulnerability. Transparency is saying what matters. Naivete is giving away material for others to control you. Machiavelli would call this the calculated use of force, not in the sense of aggression, but in the art of gauging the right dose of what is revealed. Men who blurt out their intentions quickly think it creates connection, when in reality it creates predictability. And predictability kills magnetism. A woman doesn't need to know everything immediately. She needs to feel that there are layers. Constant adaptability appears precisely here. He adjusts the depth of the conversation as the relationship progresses, without abandoning his own privacy. This creates a kind of appearance of virtue, where he seems open, but never vulnerable to the point of losing his composure. And this silent composure keeps the intrigue alive, as if he were carrying a book she only knows half the pages of. The metaphor that best explains this principle is simple. On the outside, calm water; on the inside, a depth that no one can access without merit. This is how he becomes transparent enough for her to trust him, but unfathomable enough for her to feel desire. When he reveals every intention right from the start, he hands over the complete manual on how to be manipulated. And this, for Machiavelli, would be the fatal mistake of any man who desires emotional leadership. One's own loyal armies are built on internal discipline, not on the need for external validation. He doesn't need to hide everything. He only needs to avoid the exaggeration of leaving himself completely exposed. In this dance between what is said and what remains implied, desire grows. And it is precisely in this atmosphere of carefully distributed fragments that she begins to seek clarity, an essential movement for the next stage, where his calmness becomes the magnet that pulls her closer. He finally understands that certainty is not a coin a man should surrender. It's a coin a man should awaken. The more he tries to prove something, the more value it loses. The more he stands firm, the more she tries to decipher him. This isn't foul play, it's politics guided by reality, not ideals. Human beings value what they don't fully possess. When he becomes too clear, he becomes scenery. When he becomes intriguing, he becomes destiny. Machiavelli would say that decisions based on real human nature require a careful balance between accessibility and mystery. It's not chaos, but intrigue. It's not confusion, but depth. The end justifies the means when the means create space for her to participate in the narrative instead of just watching. When he maintains his calm, without haste, without begging for correct interpretation, she begins to wonder, what does he really want? And that question is the engine of desire. He learns the difference between being difficult to read and being needy for attention. Being difficult to read is a sign of self-control. Being needy is a lack of focus. A centered man leaves clues, not conclusions. He shows interest, but never gives away complete certainty. This is what Machiavelli would call the calculated use of force, a way of calibrating presence and silence to move the dynamic in his favor without disrespecting the other person's space. And here comes a crucial detail. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean intimidating, but rather demonstrating a firmness that prevents someone from taking him for granted. Constant adaptability appears precisely when he adjusts the rhythm of the relationship without losing his own identity. He remains stable, while she alternates between curiosity and desire. He doesn't create chaos, he creates contrast. He doesn't create doubt, he creates fascination. And therefore, clarity becomes her game, not his. The big turning point occurs when he realizes that her search for answers stems not from insecurity, but from attraction. It is precisely this movement that triggers the magnetism. She wants to understand something that is not explicit. She wants to decipher the depth that he does not fully reveal. It's like leading your own loyal armies. Strength lies in silent discipline, not in the rush to explain oneself. Machiavelli would say that avoiding being hated is essential, so he doesn't use uncertainty as a weapon, but as a bridge to create more presence. He is calm, stable, consistent. His silence is not punishment, it is maturity. His actions are not impulsive, they are deliberate. This appearance of virtue generates natural respect. And it is in the space between what she knows and what she is still trying to discover that the next irresistible truth is born. Real magnetism depends on the emotional self-control he possesses, something that will become even more evident in the next chapter. He begins to notice that the emotional realm is where most men lose battles they should never have fought. Outbursts, despair, impulsive messages, the need to please. All of this reveals a lack of inner discipline. Machiavelli already said that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins with self-mastery, not with controlling others. The man who doesn't manage his own impulses becomes a hostage to any external stimulus. A sharp comment, a cold attitude, an emotional test. Decisions based on real human nature require emotional maturity, because impulsive reactions are always the territory of the naive. The end justifies the means only when the means reinforce your stability, never your vulnerability. When he takes a deep breath, observes before responding, and acts with intention, something changes in her perception. He ceases to be predictable and becomes profound. She feels it. And that's when the magnetism begins to gain density. Self-control is not about suppressing emotion, it's about not being governed by it. It's the famous calculated use of force applied internally, measuring intensity, choosing the moment, deciding the angle. A man who masters this principle doesn't react to dramas. He responds when necessary. He doesn't rush to apologize for existing. He takes responsibility without disintegrating. He understands that constant adaptability doesn't mean losing identity, but adjusting to circumstances without losing his balance. This is the essence of the appearance of virtue. He demonstrates composure even when he feels turbulence inside. And this awakens in her a mixture of respect and curiosity. She perceives that he doesn't collapse easily, that he doesn't trade stability for approval. That's why men with self-control become magnetically attractive. They represent what is rare and valuable. And rarity always creates desire. Ultimately, what separates the dangerous man from the desperate man is precisely this ability to remain calm when the world around him tries to provoke him. Machiavelli said that having one's own loyal armies is essential for any leadership, and emotionally, these armies are composed of discipline, patience, clarity, and inner strength. Better to be feared than loved applies here as a metaphor. Feared not for aggression, but for respect for one's own stability. He becomes predictably firm and unpredictably profound, and this combination creates desire, not resistance. Avoiding being hated in this context means not punishing with cold silence, but simply not reacting to others' chaos with more chaos. He maintains the atmosphere, maintains his presence, maintains his center. And it is precisely this emotional mastery that prepares the ground for the natural outcome of the journey, the Machiavellian magnetism that arises when a man silently masters himself, something that will be fully revealed in the next section. He finally realizes that the most dangerous man in the room is never the one who speaks the loudest, nor the one who tries to prove his worth in every gesture. It is the one who masters his own silence, the one who understands that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins with self-control and ends with presence. Machiavelli already said that decisions based on real human nature require precision, not theatricality, and this principle translates perfectly into the art of desire. When he speaks less, observes more, and acts with intention, the entire environment adjusts. He becomes the kind of presence that doesn't need to compete for attention, because attention simply falls on him. It is the calculated use of force at the most subtle level that exists, emotional force. The end justifies the means when the means is stability itself, because stability is irresistible. And in this firm calm, she doesn't just look, she feels. True attraction doesn't stem from pretty words, but from demeanor, The man who masters his inner world possesses something Machiavelli would call the appearance of virtue, not because he pretends to be perfect, but because he remains centered even when chaos tries to overwhelm him. He knows how to avoid being hated, when to approach and when to remain silent, when to show intention and when to conceal depth. This constant adaptability means she never fully understands him, and this creates continuous curiosity, the foundation of any deep desire. He doesn't compete for attention, he attracts it. He doesn't beg for connection, he inspires it. When he uses his silence as a tool and his calmness as a language, something inevitable happens. He becomes impossible to ignore. And impossible to ignore is exactly what she feels when she's in the presence of a man who commands his own loyal armies within himself. In the end, everything converges on a single understanding. When a man masters himself, he masters the room, and also the dynamic with women, not through manipulation but through presence. Machiavelli would say that it is better to be feared than loved, when love depends on pleasing too much. But in the game of desire, the perfect balance is to be respected and desired in equal measure. And this happens when he doesn't reveal everything, doesn't react to everything, doesn't explain everything. He becomes firm as a wall and fluid as water, the paradox that creates magnetism. The end justifies the means when the means is authenticity. And authenticity, accompanied by depth and silence laden with intention, transforms any man into someone memorable. The path is laid out, the presence is planted, and now all he needs is to apply these movements to discover in practice the power he has always had, but only now has begun to understand. Ultimately, everything you've learned here is useless if you continue living like your old self, the one who tried to please, explain, chase after, justify, and prove his worth. The truth is simple, but harsh. Men who don't apply this knowledge continue repeating the same patterns, attracting the same stories, suffering the same silent rejections. You've seen what happens when you act without strategy. Now imagine what happens when you act with presence, calmly, and with structure. Imagine the impact of a man who doesn't bend, doesn't panic, doesn't reveal the manual of his own weakness. The question is, will you go back to autopilot, or will you, for the first time, take center stage? And perhaps the most important point is this: you already know where you went wrong. You already know you talked too much when you should have been silent, explained too much when you should have observed, chased after her when you should have maintained your presence. Now that you understand the logic behind female desire and how Machiavelli would view this dynamic, you have no more excuses. Either you apply it, or you watch other men living what could be yours. What do you lose by trying, and what do you lose by not trying? Think about this with brutal honesty, because the difference between the ignored man and the unforgettable man is a single internal decision: to assume power. So tell me, which version of you will come away from this video? The version that keeps reacting, trying, begging for space, or the version that creates space, that maintains its posture, that masters its own silence? If something here resonated with you, if any phrase turned you inside out or opened up a new understanding, comment below. I want to know which part affected you the most. And of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. There's still a lot about power, psychology, and male presence that no one has told you, but I'm going to tell you.